Yes, we are. Flesh and blood. We're here to bring you Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, with new paradigms for a new world. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. I'm Richard Dugan, of course, as I said, and we come your way Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m. with our special edition of Tell Me Your Story. We're streaming live at those times at richarddugan.com. Podcasts, they're on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry. We're on YouTube where you can watch these interviews. We also ask you to participate in the Decade of Perfect Vision. We'll tell you more about that as we move along in our program. And we hope that you can support us financially. We have a PayPal account. It's there for your security as well as ours. Now, why did I go through that so quickly? Well, I'm watching the clock here and I wanted to get through in about 60 seconds, and I did it. So with that being said, here we are. We're going to be talking today about something extraordinary. Is it new? No. It's nothing new, but it's still extraordinary. And I'll explain it this way. Many of you who spend time on your computer or even on your phone sometimes, if you do any kind of recording in a sound recording software, you can watch the wave, your voice or the voices or the sounds being created from that center line to the left. And you see those waves up and down, up and down. But on the right-hand side of that, there's nothing. The analogy is this. The left side is the past. It's gone. It's over. It's done. The right side, that's the future. Hasn't happened yet. But what we're going to focus on is neither of those two. We're going to focus on the center line where it hasn't happened and it's not yet happened. It's called the now. And we're going to talk about that with our very special guest. He's going to help us to find the signs to your ultimate desires in no time. He is the Nowist. And his name is Billy Mandarino. And Billy, it is really a pleasure to have you here on the program. Thank you for joining us.
Richard, wow, that was the coolest intro I've ever had on these podcasts. That was so profound and succinct and a great visual. And what a perfect teaching to start our show today.
Well, you know, I discovered that, didn't create it. I didn't invent it, but I discovered that in the metaphoric form many years ago. And sometimes it helps me to remind myself about what is important. I can't do anything about the past, and I can list all kinds of stuff that has happened in the past. And then, of course, get all emotional about it, depending upon what it is. Get excited, get sad, and so on and so forth. I could speculate about what I'd like to see in the future, my heart's desire, and so on and so forth. Again, I could get all emotional either way. And both of those they're all right. But what I have found so interesting is when we talk about the now, this very instant, as we speak, and it's really funny because every time I can hear your voice or my voice, that's already the past. Our brains, even though it's milliseconds, or micromilliseconds. I don't know what the timing is, what the delay is. It's already happened. And that's what's so wild about all of this. How did you become the Nowist?
Great question. I get that one a lot, and the answer always comes through me differently. So I'll set you up with that. But for me, most of us, live in our past and future. They say that, if you live in your past, your future will become your past. And most people live in that space, that triggered space of trauma, of positive things. The language of emotion is in your body. Like you were just describing how, the emotions you have and they're in your body. And the body tends to pull us back in time, back in this illusion, as Einstein called it, this illusion of time, of the past and the future, and these emotions. You'll get triggered and you'll have these emotions. But the reality is, I learned through my trauma and through my past and had some near-death experience. I was paralyzed. I've had, I came from a divorced family, lots of trauma as a child. so much in this Earth School, as Gary Zukav calls it in his wonderful book. The Earth School has taught me so much about time and about how it truly is illusion. I've proved it to myself that whenever I use my energy and put it in the past or worry about the future, it seems like I have no control, and I'm in this amorphous wave of stress and trauma and drama. And I realized once through one of these traumatic experiences, too long of a story to tell, but it was ultimately out of the trauma and the worry and the overwhelm that pushed me, that it kind of like forced me into the present moment. The awareness that the present moment is the only place I have to correct and manifest my life in a different energy field, not so much drug into the gravity of the past and the future. When I learned that, Richard, it was just like a bucket of cold water was thrown over me. And I became obsessed with the present moment. I mean, books were starting to find me, literally find me. I wasn't finding these books. They were just showing up synchronistically in my life. The first one, of course, was the Bible when I was a little kid. And then other books teaching about presence and the power of the present moment and all these wonderful quotes. And then Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of the Now, found me. And when that hit me, I just, oh my gosh, there's something that's calling me to a bigger purpose. And in Hindu traditions, they call it your dharma. My purpose is to learn about this now. And so my book, The Now-ist, is about the spiritual memoir about how I found the present moment to be the most powerful part of my life. And I've got a meditation around, I've got teachings and principles and practices. And it's not a religion. It's not like some crazy religion. It's literally a practice, a way of life to consistently get yourself in the present moment throughout your physical time, throughout your physical day. 90% of my day, I live in present moment awareness as a nowist. 10%, it hits the fan. I get distracted, but I come back so quickly because it feels so uncomfortable to be out of the present moment that it becomes a habit. My subconscious mind is just conditioned to live in this present moment awareness. So I've been all over the world teaching. I've had live events. I do online coaching. I do in-person coaching. Of course, there's the book, The Nowist. It's on Audible. I can read it to you if you go to the Audible, or you go to billymandarino.com. You can learn about all of it. We're all over social media. So it's been this mission of mine, Richard, just to help people get out of this illusion of time, stress, overwhelm. It's taking over the planet post-pandemic. It's at all-time highs on this planet. The negative energy field of this planet is at an all-time high. Well, it's my job to teach people that this past future energy is false. It's an illusion. Don't live in it. Find your power, which the present moment, once you learn to live there skillfully, you'll find that you can live in that 90-10 ratio too. Then emotionally, socially, spiritually, financially, everything in your life starts to shift and you become this greater person you ever imagined yourself to be.
Yeah. Another element to what you're describing, we talk about giving people choices and knowledge of those choices to help make their dreams come true. And as you stated quite well, one of the things that we tend to do pretty regularly as a species is we make choices. And where we are right now is based upon all of the choices that we have made in the past. If you want to dive into the past and take a look at the choices you've made, it will be very clear as to how you find yourself where you are. And then, of course, they say, to carry that to the next level, that where you will be in the future is going to be based upon all of the choices that you make now. Well, one of my guests threw this wonderful addendum, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It goes to the concept of, is your glass half full or half empty? And he said, that all is true. And all of the choices that you make now are based upon your perception of what you think your future will be. If you're an optimist or a pessimist. Now, no judgment on anybody in either of those phases, but to me, a pessimist, because I don't see optimism in prepping, okay? Digging a hole in the ground, storing up whatever, your nuts and your acorns, and getting ready for the apocalypse or the zombie apocalypse or nuclear Armageddon or whatever other thing you want to throw out there for the future. As opposed to myself, when I look to the future, I don't really see anything in particular. My perspective is where I'm at right now, I'm an optimist. And it's kind of like I learned this when I was working for the Christian radio station. If you're looking for the devil under every rock, guess what? You're going to find him. And if you're looking for God under every rock or good, you're going to find it. And I'm looking for the good. I trust people, even those people who may have taken advantage of me down the road. But I look at it differently. They didn't take advantage of me. I chose to connect with them. It's like over the years, I don't know about you, Billy. I can't stand playing the victim. It's not somebody else's fault, and it's not even my fault. I made choices. Talk to us a little bit about that as to how we can keep our bodies, minds, hearts, and souls, if you will, here, right now, in this moment.
I like to call it the art of surrender. When you can learn to surrender to what is and not feel like the victim, not put your energy field, mostly your emotional energy and your thoughts focused on what you don't want, because there's this crazy thing called the law of attraction. Sky's blue, water's wet, right? We're here on this physical earth and gravity's holding us here to our chairs currently. And there's these universal laws. So the law of attraction is also a universal law. Whatever you focus on expands. Where your energy goes, right? Your focus goes to that spot, it's going to expand. It's going to get bigger. It's going to be a bigger player in your life. So most people have this habit. And I love William Wordsworth. He's one of my favorite poets. He says, not choice, but habit rules the unreflecting herd. We're all ruled by our habits. So what are our habits? Most people are not aware of their habits. They have habits they think that serve them, but they realize that they're unhappy, they're overweight, they're broke, they're in tough relationships, they're not a good parent, and they're just not fulfilled because they have these terrible habits. And it's like Groundhog's Day, which is actually today. Isn't today Groundhog's Day?
Yeah, the day we are conversing. Yes, it is
It
Groundhog.
is like Groundhog's Day, isn't
Yeah.
it? How'd you like that segue? It's like Groundhog's Day. So every day is the same thing over and over again because you never scratch the record. You never interrupt your pattern. Like Wordsworth says, you don't have a new habit. You stick to these same old habits that don't serve you. So you become this attracting force. We are all these energy fields. We attract whatever we focus on. I have just learned through living in present moment awareness that when I can use one of the greatest gifts we've ever been given, Richard, is our wonderful human imagination. You have the ability to put your attention on what it is you want to manifest. And the beautiful Abraham Maslow says, a self-actualizing person, they called him the father of self-actualization, would never place their attention on what they do not want to manifest. And he further says, when you become independent of the good opinion of other people and detached from outcome, you've become self-actualized. So it's almost like a quantum phase transition thing where you can take your energy back by focusing on what it is you want with your wonderful human imagination. In that imagination, you can use all 5 of your senses. You're going to hear, smell, taste, touch. You're going to feel what it feels like for this thing you want to manifest, or this event you want to manifest in your life. The law of attraction is going to activate, and boom, you're going to start drawing things to you. It's called synchronicity. These wonderful events are going to happen. These spiritual breadcrumbs are going to show up in your life and lead you towards this focused imagination that you have. The law of attraction, coupled with your wonderful human imagination, can change your whole life. And that's part of what I teach in the Nowist teachings. It's all about using your imagination with your focused energy, the energy field of your body. We all come from energy. We're not particle. When you get down to the atomic level, we're energy. There's no particle. They call it the God particle, I guess, in there. It's this energy field. You can take that energy and manifest whatever it is you want. You are not limited. And that's the big lie that the world, the media, your past values, conditioning, they teach you that, oh, well, you got to do this, save for a rainy day, save your acorns, right? Put your nuts, step over dollars to pick up dimes. That is not an abundant person. A mind focused on scarcity will never attract abundance. So that's where your imagination comes in, the power of your present moment awareness. You can change your life. It's not as hard as people might think.
Well, I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that one of the things that I love about this program is doing this program. Billy, I have, as you probably do, have some of your favorite top 2, 3, 4, 5 artists that you love listening to, as do I. I've mentioned mine many times on this program. And they have this calling, this feeling, this purpose to be on stage, sharing through their music themselves. And I love singing, but it's like I'm trying to tap into that, and it's like that's not where I'm at. My calling, where I share parts of myself, is here in these interviews. And I'm starting to make peace with that, because I would love to be sharing, and I've written 2 songs, one in particular that folks will hear at the end of some of these programs that I wrote. It took me, I think, about 6 months to write. I had a
Good for you. Yes.
Yeah, had a facilitator, and I got to tell you, it was fun. It was such a blast, especially when I took that song, and then my facilitator, she brought in 2 or 3 musicians. We laid down the music tracks, and then on my own, I added my voice to it, and then did some wonderful things in the post-production. And there were people, I've actually performed it live in front of a group of people that I was invited to participate in. And I got some wonderful comments specifically from the men, because it was tied into that. I am a good man doing the best I can. I'm a good man is the title of the song.
Love
So
it.
a lot of the guys came up to me and they said, thanks. I have been wanting to feel that, say that, inspire, and we as men, you and I both know that we're always, they say we're the fixers,
Oh yeah.
always trying to fix stuff.
Yeah.
And I've been told, you need to stop doing, you've done more than enough. It's not that you're going to stop helping people, stop fixing, but you need to stop the perspective, if you will, or the attitude of, I got to do more. I got to do more. I got to do more. No, 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 no. And it takes me back to this aspect of perfection.
Mm.
Now, that's an area where I think if you think about the concept of perfection as we know it in our society, that takes you out of the now, because you're then comparing yourself to some ideal, some model somewhere, somehow. But I love the biblical definition, as I have discovered it, where it says in the New Testament, be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. So I began trying to define Father in heaven. Okay, is he always doing the right thing, or is he doing the wrong thing? No, has nothing to do with that. Has nothing to do with light or dark, right or wrong, good or bad. Then in the Old Testament, it talks about, and I think it's in Psalms where it's referenced, I am that I am. In the
Yes.
now, right now, I am that I am.
That's
And I
God's
put
name.
those
Yes.
2 together. That is perfection, just to be. Do you share that concept in other ways with folks? There's nothing that you need to, let alone that you can do, to be perfect, other than just being.
Amen, brother. Can I get an amen on a Thursday?
Hallelujah.
Woo, that was beautiful, brother. I love that. Yes. Okay, couple things. So Mark Twain, of course, I love quotes. I read a lot,
yeah.
so I love quotes. Mark Twain said, "Comparison is the death of joy."
Yes.
And there you go in a nutshell, right? I mean, comparison is the death of joy. You writing your song, I love that. I'm a musician as well. I was on, my bandmate, Kirsten, we have a band called In the Present Tense. So we had a record come out a couple of years ago, and I totally feel you. Musicians, people that write songs, people that share their heart. It's been called the universal, right, language, music, and it truly is, because it hit those gentlemen that heard your song in the heart. Because when you can perform music from the heart, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, but when you can be authentic and you can connect to an emotion and put it in that universal language, you hit people's hearts. I have a wonderful vocal coach named Roger Love, And he told me, like, when he was teaching me about diaphragmatic singing and all these energy and projections of sound coming from your body, he says, you think that you're performing this music to people, but you're actually physically, the waveforms coming out of your body is moving people's body. Yeah. You're physically moving them, but when you can get in the right frequency, you tune to their energy field, and then they feel an emotion, they cry. Last night, my wife and I and daughter were watching Harry Styles on my daughter is obsessed with Harry Styles. I've seen him twice. And this kid, he's just turned 29 yesterday, and we were watching him on TV on this, YouTube broadcast or whatever. And my daughter's so obsessed, and she loves music too, thank God. And it's just to see this kid, he's 29, but 20,000 people in the audience, and he's been doing like 200 shows. Last night was the last night of his North American tour, just to see how the joy, and he's done 200 shows in, I don't know, a year and a half. He did not lose, and we saw him like a year ago, but he never lost he never waned in his energy or his inspiration about the music, because he knows he's connecting these people. They're crying, they're close-ups on it. It's like Elvis, like it was this phenomena. But when people can learn to tune their energy, and when you can do it in music or in poetry, song is this energy field that you can connect to that. I don't know if you know that A440 is the current tune. Being a guitarist and a singer-songwriter, we tune our instruments to A440. But I've been studying on this 528 megahertz, which is where the correct tuning is actually for our instruments. That is the frequency of God. That is the frequency of God's name. It's in nature. The I am that I am tunes to 528 megahertz. But back in the day, there was this German, I don't know what year it was, but I've studied it a little bit. I forget the year, but they took that 528 tuning and changed it to A440. So the frequency and the resonant that was tuning to the human heart, which is 528 megahertz. I know I'm getting a little woo-woo crazy on you, but to me, it's so fascinating, because they try to dumb down the universal vibration of love, which is 528. It vibrates at 528 hertz. And when you can vibrate at that, you affect people. So John Lennon's song, Imagine, that was written and recorded in 528 hertz. It was not written in A440. He knew this. And that song has changed the world and so many people, millions, billions of people's lives. So we think about that and how we tune to people, how we tune to our energy. But our words have that same resonance, the words you say. In my book and in my live events, I talk about Dr. Emoto, who wrote this book, The Hidden Messages in Water, and the hidden meanings in water, and how when you can tune the words you say, the feelings you have, especially in music, you can change the frequency and the physical molecular structure of water. He took these jars, Dr. Richard, and he wrote, his name, he wrote names on them. He wrote like words like, I hate you, I'm going to kill you. And then he wrote benevolent words like, I love you, prayer, oneness, peace. And he froze these jars. And when he took them out after freezing them and he put them under a microscope, the molecular structure of water, I'm going to kill you, was all jagged and asymmetrical, and hate and death were all weird and asymmetrical shapes. Then the crystals that said, I love you, peace, joy, compassion, they look like snowflakes, perfect geometrical shapes like the flower of life. And so that proved to him that words have an energy, have a frequency. Imagine how when you tune that up with music, how that changes the world. So we are 70% water. The earth is 70% water. You think about how you can change your frequency, starting, if you're not a musician like you and I am, are inspired to write music, but when you speak to people, more importantly, when you speak thoughts to yourself, make sure you always speak kindly and sing those beautiful notes.
Yeah. Billy Mandarino is my guest. He's the Nowist, and this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it is really a pleasure to talk to Billy and to discuss this concept. And it is more than just a concept, but you can make it your reality if you want to. You don't have to. Nobody's forcing anything on anybody. That's always been a sort of an interesting perspective of mine, where especially working at the Christian station. I was there for 15 years during the height of televangelism back in the 80s and early 90s. And they always loved to use the phrase personal relationship with God or Jesus, and then I had local ministers and pastors who I'd been around for a number of years, who then began to tell me, "Oh, Richard, I don't believe you're saved. I don't think you're ready to meet God." And it's like, wait a minute, But you just said it was a personal relation. How is it that it's a three-way here? No. God knows where I am, and I refer to it as the universal power of the force, whatever you want to call it. God knows where I am, can call me collect. I will accept the charges. Okay.
Right now.
Right now. I even had some people come in, and I was born legally blind, and they wanted to come in and lay hands on me to restore my sight. I refused. Now, that sounds awfully strange. You think, oh, hey, let's do this, except for one problem. Restore my sight to what? If we go back to when I was an infant, it would be worse because I had a bunch of surgeries as a kid growing up, and I was seeing better then than I was as an infant. Since then, I've had a lens implant, and now I'm driving, believe it or not. But I said, I can't stop you from praying for me, and I appreciate that. But my purpose in life is not to have my vision restored. My purpose in life is to serve you. How can I serve you? What is it that you need me to do with your program and the materials you brought me, the albums and the cassettes and whatever it is, in that respect? And I even took my first wife, who was totally blind, to one of these tent revivals. A matter of fact, I still remember the minister's name. It was R.W. Shambach. Oh, what a guy. Oh, it was amazing. And he did laying on of hands with oil and that kind of thing. Now, as far as I know, and I haven't talked with her in a long time, as far as I know, she's still blind. She lost her sight due to the fact that back when she was born, they had difficulty regulating these incubators because she was a preemie. And if you got too much oxygen, it burned the eye. And if you didn't get enough, then it had an effect on the brain. Well, she had the former as opposed to the latter. But she was still doing the stuff that she was a medical transcriptionist for a while, and then she was a massage therapist. And of course, at one point we went our separate ways. But my point in bringing those things up is that whatever it is that we choose to do in the now, it's our choice. And that, first of all, we don't need to justify anything to anyone, let alone ourselves. And nor do we, as you said and quoted Mark Twain, nor do we want to compare ourselves, because they're they're not diametrically opposed. They go hand in hand. One is we are all alike because we are humans. And we all experience the same emotions at different intensities.
Absolutely.
But what makes us unique is the stories behind the emotions. What makes you cry doesn't necessarily make me cry. I will be empathetic, and what makes me cry, I don't know, if you were to watch Little House on the Prairie these days, you think that'd bring a tear to your eye? Because it does me.
Me too. I was raised on Little House on the Prairie. Pa, I call my dad Pa because of, Michael Landon, because they called him Pa. Remember? I have 6 brothers and sisters. We call my dad Pa because we were so touched and we felt such a kindred spirit for Michael Landon and my dad. And my dad, God bless him, he is just like Pa. He's just this kind, honest, hardworking, just loving arms father. And we call him Pa because of that show.
Yeah. Well, my dad, who is 92 this year, 92 in August, and he's still moving along, but my mother has to take care of him a little bit because he's got some mobility issues and so forth. I have started to work on a song for him, and in that song, the chorus basically, I refer to him as Daddy, because that's what I've referred to him as when I was a child. Now it's just, hey, Dad. I never got into the habit of calling him father. That just didn't, maybe it's my Catholic upbringing because priest, that kind of thing. But I'm working on one of these songs, primarily an ode to my father, because my father shared with me some years ago, and kind of repeats it occasionally, that he does not feel as though he really had that much of an influence on our upbringing because he was always away. Now, he worked a 9 to 5 in the city where we lived, and he always came home because my mother would go pick him up. He had vision problems too, so he didn't drive. And he always came home smelling of a print shop because that's where he worked. And it's like, how can you? I remember calling him not long ago And I said, Dad, you shared this thought of yours with me, and I just want you to know, seriously, first of all, I love you very much, and I would not be half the man I am if it weren't for you.
Mm.
And again, I'm guessing that my dad is comparing himself, or even for that matter, judging himself, because he doesn't think. And it's like, wow, raised 6 kids and you don't think you had you brought us into this world, buddy.
That's right. I love the big family. I say, family like that, like ours, is like love. Love is family, the family bunch, love is family in a bunch. That's the feeling of love for me. It's like that, all that connection to the brothers and sisters, three brothers, two boys and four girls. I mean, what was your makeup?
Mine was exactly the same. Two older sisters, two younger sisters, and a younger brother. And to my brother's credit, I'm 62, I'll be 63 this year. My brother is younger than me, worked for Disney for quite a number of years, has already retired. He's traveling in Asia right now, as a matter of fact,
Go boy.
Southeast Asia. He loves that part of the world.
Good on him.
Yeah, I'm proud of him. I'm proud of the fact that he even took my parents to China one year. No, I have never been envious of my brother. Because we have different paths. I mean, I was a little frustrated. We had a conversation not long ago and we got into politics and so forth. And he is of a different philosophical perspective, and he has a right to that. I was frustrated over the fact that it was as if he wasn't able to see my perspective. But again, that's okay. He's where he's at. But as I said to my father, we had a little altercation, my dad and I, not long ago. And he came to me the night I was staying with them for my sister's memorial, and he had blown up at me because I made a joke about my brother not being there. We had traveled across town, and my brother didn't come back with us. He went over with us, but didn't come back. My dad wanted to know where he was, and I jokingly said, "Oh, Dad, I'm so sorry. We had to sell him to put gas in the truck." He did not. Hey, when I ask a question, I want an answer. I mean, he was really mad, but he came to me that night as I'm making up the couch, and he came up to me and he apologized. He said, "I didn't mean it," and I put my hands on his shoulders and I said, "Dad, first of all, I love you very much, and you will always be my father, and we're good."
Amen.
And he was coming from a different perspective. He didn't want to joke around about one of his children. He just lost his eldest daughter.
Oh,
yeah. And he even made that classic statement the morning of the memorial. He says, "Parents aren't supposed to bury their children."
That's the hardest one.
There was nothing I could say to that.
Just
Absolutely
nothing.
no response. And I didn't respond.
Right.
But I try to let him know. And this is to me part of the being in the now, is being, I guess, almost empathic as well as empathetic to someone else and where they're at, so that you can sort of shift your energy a little bit to be there in the now for them.
Here's the crazy part, Richard. Is they call it holding space. Have you heard that before?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
holding space, empathy for people. You have to hold space, and you think, wait a minute, space and time are this quantum realm, right? Where there's space and time, and if now is infinite, because the symbol of my book is called the Now-ist symbol. Basically, you've got a linear line, timeline, which is past and future. Then you have a vertical line where those two meet. That intersection is called the now, and it's out of time. So when you take your attention from your past and your future and you put it in this present moment, you enter that vertical, that horizontal timeline. And when those meet, that's the present moment. So when you hold space for somebody, you're literally taking yourself and them collectively out of that time. Even though you're holding space, you're in this present moment kind of vacuum, if you will, this quantum moment where you are connecting in empathy and compassion. It's that space. If more people could learn to pause and to get out of their thinking and out of the past and the future. And of course, in that moment, you said, hey, hands on the shoulder, Dad, we're good. Like that, in that moment, that was like the phase transition, if you will, where instantly you collapse time into, if you want to call it the God particle, into just, you took time and this particles, and you collapse them into an energy field or a wave. And that is holding space for people. And that's when you start to show true compassion and empathy, and you get out of the mind made and the past and the future. And in that moment, that's the now. So it's that crossification, which you can do at any time, like you did this morning when you were coming down the mountain. You were telling, how you were stressed out earlier before we came on air about, this person that was slow in front of you. And you instantly, even though this person, you don't even know them and they're ahead of you and they're taking their time to get down on your commute to the radio station, but you collapsed time. You held space for this individual you didn't even know. But look at the benefit you gave. And you probably gave the other person a benefit. They just didn't know it, because ultimately we are all one. Mm-hmm. And what is NOW spelled backwards, Richard?
One.
When you're in the now, you've won. You've won your presence back, and then you're paying it forward by being in that present moment awareness and holding space. That's the key.
And it's a winning for everybody, if you will, to win, a win-win-win kind of thing. But to have won is pretty spectacular, and it is non-ego. It's not selfish. It's selfless. One of the beautiful things I love, one of the passages from the New Testament speaks to, come to me as little children, not childish, childlike. And kids are in the now. I mean, you've seen this, I'm sure. You see the playground, and all of a sudden one of these little kids running along, and he trips and he falls and he scrapes his knee, wah, 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 and then all of a sudden shifts and gets up and plays some more. Gets it out, releases that energy of the pain, and that sound, that crying helps to release that pain, and then moves on into the next moment of the now.
Oh my God, you hit, Richard, one of my favorite nerves, if you will, in human existence, and that's living. It's one of the chapters of my book, Living in Childlike Bewilderment. I love Rumi. You familiar with Rumi, the poetry of Rumi?
Oh, yes.
It says, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. When you can live in that childlike, bewilderment that the Bible is talking about, that Jesus is talking about, little children are always in the present moment. They don't ever think about what the comparison mentality we talked about. They don't care what time it is. They're literally Batman, Wonder Woman. They're in the sandbox. They are in their imaginations, which is once again, the power they have. They harness it regularly. They don't care about what's going on or what people think. They're living in that present moment awareness. So I look at little children as some of our greatest teachers, because they are constantly role modeling what it is to be a Nowist. And look at hummingbirds and nature. I call them nature's Nowists, because hummingbirds are the fastest hummingbird wings beat 86 flaps per second, right? And they look like they're perfectly still. They're in the present moment. They're doing what they're doing. However, they're busy as can be, right? They're busy as bees practically, because their wings are flapping so fast. But they are nature's Nowists. So I learned from the playing, the levity of a hummingbird and the childlike bewilderment of little children. Those are some of your greatest teachers. So pay attention to both of them.
Yeah. We talked at the front end of the program about the past and the future. And yes, the past has its place. Some would say, well, yeah, it belongs in the past. There's nothing you can do about it. But it also can teach us lessons that we can bring to the now and also to the future. We look at the future, as I mentioned earlier, about, okay, well, what is my vision of the future? Or maybe more appropriately and more expansive and a little more esoteric is, what is my glass? I joke about this. My glass is half full or half empty. I just want to know what it's full of, or half empty. What's in there? For me, it might be a little Guinness or Irish cream kind of thing. But that's when you're looking at the future. What is your perspective? Are you optimistic about the future? Not what do you see, flying cars and, we're all going to live on the moon and stuff. No. Talking about, are you prepared for an expansive, joyous, blissful experience, not devoid of the other emotions and the other experiences, but that is going to sort of feed your soul, or are you pessimistic and it's all going to hell in a handbasket and there's nothing we can do about it, and we might as well just blow ourselves up because that's what we're doing slowly. It's a slow suicide kind of thing. And it's like, I look at it this way. If today is my day to leave this earth, and I don't believe that I'm mortal, I am immortal. Not the physical body, mind you, that which animates it. But if today is my day to leave this body, I'm good with that. Is there more I want to do? Like you, Billy, I'm sure there's so much more I want to do, but I can't control the expiration date on my birth certificate, as Stephen Wright says. But I'm good with that. Just like my sister, when I had this conversation with her before her passing, I asked her, are you ready? Are you ready? She said yes and no. And I'm going, Jeanette. She says, no, because she didn't want to leave her husband behind to deal with all of this stuff. But she said, for myself, she says, yes, I'm ready. I'm not afraid. I am ready. I am prepared. And it's like, if we could reach that space where we are prepared at any moment, then I think, would I be wrong in assessing that maybe we might make different choices? And again, I'm not being the pessimist. I'm actually being the optimist,
You
saying, hey, take a chance. What have you got to lose? And I've shared this on the program before. I filed bankruptcy twice in the last 30 years. In the last 10 years, things have gone the way they've gone. And I thought, okay, here comes number 3. I thought, no, that's insanity. Thank you, Einstein, for that definition. I appreciate it, really do. I did something different. And within less than a year and a half, things have turned around because I made a different choice. Do you think that grasping a hold of and becoming comfortable with, or at least accepting, what was it you said earlier about surrendering?
Yes, the art of surrendering.
Yeah, there's nothing I can do about that. So if I surrender to it and then focus my attentions on right here, right now with you, okay, it's going to be at 3:14 p.m. this afternoon. Okay, I'll be leaving, but we're here right now. I got to stay focused here. I can't think about 3:14 p.m. this afternoon when I'm leaving, when my ticket gets punched.
There's no energy there, is there? It's completely dead. There's no energy, and you have no power to change. I mean, you said something earlier, Richard, about the probably the most powerful words ever spoken in the human language, I would say, are I am that I am, which, if you remember in Exodus, that's the name of God that God gave Moses at the burning bush. And when Moses is, hears this voice, and God says, Moses, and Moses says, here I am, Lord, right? There it is. It was a precursor. It was a prequel to the big main event, which is the I am that I am. That will be my name for all generations. I will go by no other name. That's God's name. It's only said one place in the Bible where God says this is his name. Yeah. Jesus quotes it many times. I am the way, the truth, and the life. There's so many connections to the I am. How do you use your I ams? You can have bankruptcy, you can have divorce, you can have people that die. I am is the most powerful 2 words that you have in your English language. How do you use them? Yeah. I am poor, I am weak, I am broke, I am bankrupt, I am, physically not where I want to be. I'm in a bad job, I'm in a bad relationship. You're basically blaspheming more than if you said, God damn it. You use your I ams, they have the power of the universe, the power of infinity. I am perfect health. I mean, I went through paralysis. I went through near-death experiences. I constantly said, I am perfect health. I am getting better. I am powerful. I am one with God. I am altogether God, and God is altogether me. Yeah. These type of powers, that's how you take yourself out of bankruptcy, out of stress, out of overwhelm, out of anxiety. You have to use and harness the power of God's name, because God said, I am that I am. I am that I am. He's pointing to that, meaning everything is God. Yeah. And part of the prayer that I've created, it's called the Now-ist meditation. One of the prayers is, I am that I am, the conquering presence in the now. You use the power of the I am presence. And the I am is just, it's so underplayed, and people say it without even knowing what they're saying. But when you use your wonderful imagination focused in the present moment with your I am presence, that's when the miracles happen. That's probably how you shift yourself out of bankruptcy, or even the thought of it, because you put your attention with your present moment awareness, focus with your imagination on yourself being out of there. Yeah. That's when you get out of this linear timeline, you get to the present moment, which is where those two cross in your I am presence. That's the power to change lives. That's the power to change others' lives.
Yeah, that passage that you just quoted gave me pause to think that Jesus said, now, granted, this is the way it's phrased in most of the English translations, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man come to the Father but by me. But maybe there's a word missing. I am is the way, the truth, and the life.
Amen.
You know, that's what struck me when you said that. I'm going, whoa, okay. We're not supposed, and then of course there's a sidebar. If I was truly going to be a follower of this philosophy, I would not be a Christian. I would be a Jew, because Jesus was a Jew. He didn't convert, I don't think. You know, he was a Jew. So I should be a Jew. I should be Jewish. And I have to tell you that I have an interview coming up with a rabbi. I can hardly wait. I love those conversations with those gentlemen and gentlewomen. It's so spectacular. I get so excited because of stuff I'm going to learn. I have learned so much in those conversations, as I have learned here with you, Billy Mandarino, who is the Nowist here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and this is quite an exciting thing. I want to dive into one other area now. I touch upon it when I encourage people to participate in the Decade of Perfect Vision, the 2020s. Now, we, of course, started out the first year, 2020, with the Year of Perfect Vision. And we encourage people to, and this is where I want to go next, I want to go within. We encourage them to go within, to that quiet, still, calm, peaceful place, and listen to the still small voice. It doesn't stop there. And follow the promptings. Talk to us about our intuition, our still small voice, and being a Nowist.
Oh my gosh, that is so well said. And thank you, brother. I love that we are having this conversation in presence with the energy of the I am presence, because it's just pulsating. I feel it through our connection here. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm. So I believe that when I'm on my knees, here's my bed, praying to God every night in the morning, I have my rituals and my prayers, and prayer and meditation to me are the same thing. Mm-hmm. And when I use the power of my present moment awareness and the wonderful human imagination I have this ritual. I call it GUT, trusting your gut, right? Your gut. But gut stands for, it's an acronym, get up there. Get up there, GUT, trusting your gut. So when I'm on my knees praying to God, right, I'm saying this prayer out to God, but my intuition and my gut is God answering that prayer. Synchronicities will show up. My gut will tell me, oh no, do this, do that. This is God answering my prayer, or anyone's prayer for that matter. You have to be aware. You have to tune to that frequency that is God, that is God's, the chill bumps, the inspiration, the feelings of warmth, the Holy Spirit, whatever this overcomes you to help you make that choice based in your prayer. I think some people wait for some miraculous thing to happen and God to do it for them, but God is giving you the inspiration and the energy to choose that. So I call it getting up there. So what I do is I imagine myself hovering. Richard, imagine, if you would, right now, if we were 3 miles above the earth and you're up there in the massive space that is this gorgeous blue marble that we live on. You see this blue line arching, and you see the stars like these pinholes on the curtain of night, and you're up there. Could you feel the gravity of your problems? Could you feel the worry, the stress, the overwhelm of the world? If you are up there, truly up there in your imagination, and you're feeling the presence of this hum of the earth, you would be in such awe that you would be out of the physical gravity of your problems, of the physical gravity of your thoughts, and all these things that keep us in this linear time, this past future time. If you're up there, if you're trusting your gut and you're up there, and you're connecting, you're tethering that moment when you're up there in that imaginative state of being above the planet, but you're tethered to this person on the ground and feeling this physical intuition or this gut reaction, because there's 40,000 more neurons in your gut than in your brain. That is a scientific fact. And that is because God, I know, in this beautiful apparatus he's created in his image, he knows that there is this technology through this. And you trust your gut with your intuition, and that is God answering your prayers. So when I'm thinking about what's the next thing, I don't think, I think with my gut, not my head, because I realize that's the intuitive spark that's in me, the divine spark of God that is the I am that resides in me and I in him. And so when I live that way, that's when my timing is good. That's when I don't have stress and overwhelm, because my gut, I'm always up, I'm living up there consistently. Because the Nowist meditation I've created, it's a 1-minute meditation. You can do what's called convergent with your eyes open or divergent with your eyes closed. You can imagine yourself. I don't know about you, but I can, with my eyes open, I can see myself right now hovering above the planet. I can feel the weightlessness of space, and I can be in awe of that blue line, that arch around the earth. But while I'm up there, I'm tethered to what is the experience I'm going through, what's the decision I have to make, and in stillness and in peace. And if people want to kind of learn more about that, if you go to billymandarino.com, I've got 500 plus videos on YouTube where I teach all kinds of Nowist concepts for free. We did a 1 Minute in the Now series for 2 years. There's a bunch of 1-minute videos. If you don't have time, just scroll through those. But I want to teach people, this is my dharma, this is my purpose, to help this world that's in overwhelm and stress and anxiety learn how to get out. And the reality is, it's a step in the direction of you. It's not this outward bound journey. It's like one of my favorite books of all time, The Alchemist. I don't know if you've read that book, Richard, but that book is so powerful. Paulo Coelho wrote that book. It's the 5th most published book in the world. It's been translated to 69 languages. And it's a short little book about this journey and the step towards you, not this outward bound journey, but trusting this powerful present moment awareness and your ability and your intuition and your gut to change your life and the life of others.
Incredible. Billy Mandarino is my guest. We will be linked to his website, which is billymandarino.com. And I'll spell that for you, folks. BILLYMANDARINO.com. We hope that you will go there as well as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. And Billy, I do want to dive into this experience that you referred to earlier, that you have had, this near-death or out-of-body experience, near-death experience. But I want to touch on one other thing regarding the intuition. The one thing that comes to mind is that the intuition and that information, shall we say, whether it actually be information, guidance, maybe it's inspiration, maybe it's encouragement. Hey, you're doing okay. Just keep going forward, that kind of stuff. That is only in the now. It's not in the past, nor is it in the future. It is. So when you're hearing that voice, you're in the now.
That's it. There is no time. There's no time. It's a man-made construct. Of course, our Uncle Einstein and all his brilliance, probably one of the most brilliant minds to ever walk the blue marble. I mean, he tells us he figured it out. Time is an illusion. Why are we spending all this time in illusion? That's so crazy that people get caught up in that. I've just found it to be so uncomfortable. Physical time, chronological time, I find it to be so uncomfortable that I've conditioned myself, because you've heard it said before, Richard, 96% of everything you do is done with your subconscious mind. What if you could program your mind to live in the present moment, to be a Nowist, to someone that lives in that ratio of 90% in present moment awareness, 10% in worldly duties and things to do, and allowing yourself to kind of get in that river of time, but then to come right back because you realize that it doesn't serve you. Yeah. When you can learn to live that way as a Nowist, you invert that ratio, and 96% of what you're doing comes from present moment awareness. Your actions, your thoughts, your interaction with people, your service and kindness to people, you come from that place of how can I do this service or this action or this work in present moment awareness. And when that becomes your way of life, look out, because the things you place your attention on will manifest. These spiritual breadcrumbs or synchronicities will start showing up in your life, and you will be guided. because the I am is the I am that you are. And when you live in that and you realize there's this oneness between me and the other person, the boss or the problems that are happening or the divorce or the upset financially, emotionally, physically, you'll realize that this power resides only here. And when you get that, when you really get it, you'll never go back to the physical world. You'll never go back to living in linear time because you realize there's nothing there for you. You can't serve. I believe we're all here, Richard, as you are, to serve. How can we enjoy this physical experience we're having and come from a place of how can I serve, not what's in it for me? Your life will just continually becoming this unfolding, beautiful, symphony of experiences.
It's one of the reasons why I've never taken the perspective of those who others observed were taking advantage of me as doing such, because I'm here to serve. But the other aspect of it too is, and I had this experience. One of my general managers lived by the law of diminishing returns, defined as don't put out more than you expect to get back. I just couldn't live like that. We had one experience like that where we had a programmer. He bought some time, had a 30-minute show. He had boxes full of these 5-inch reels of tape, and he wanted to combine them together to make programs. So I started working with this tape, and it squeaked as it went through the guides. I'm going, what the heck? And I found out it's because, he hadn't stored them quite as well as he should have. So the oil that they use, very light oil, had basically dried out. So I did some research, found a way to keep it from squeaking. I was able to transfer the audio to cassette, make the programs for the radio broadcast. And I went through all of the tapes and I finished the project. 6 weeks after he had signed his contract, he canceled. Okay. Now he had programming probably for a year or two. And my boss certainly would have thought if we had known that he was going to cancel in 6 weeks, we probably wouldn't have done the project. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, now, wait a minute. What if you think of it from the other perspective? All right. Let's say we had known. Why wouldn't we have done this project for him? Because when he leaves, guess what? He's got a great taste in his mouth of this radio station and its personnel that are willing to go out of their way to provide a service that no one else has been able to do. And he will spread the word far and wide about what a great station and great people that we've got there. And I will tell you that as I was doing that project, as I was physically working on that project, there was no time. And this leads into another area regarding time, or the lack, the human construct of it. The term that's used, especially in sports, I was in the zone. It was like, my God, it's been 3 hours, and then I've got a smaller pile here and a big pile over here that is completed. Wow, I did that in 3 hours. Wow. That to me is one of the best definitions or examples of timelessness and being in the now.
You can get there anytime you practice yourself into presence. And the flow state, and there's been a lot of books written about the flow state. Athletes get into it, and musicians get into it. I mean, everybody can get in the flow state. It's not hard to get there. It's just the problem is people let their thinking mind take them out of the flow state. But when you are literally like you were immersed, when I'm in the studio working on music, when I'm writing a song, I'm the same way. I'm in timelessness. I'm literally in that creative energy, which has no beginning and end. It's just pure inspiration. And inspiration, I mean, I used to be motivated, right? I used to have this motivation, this great ambition to be a rock star, to be all these things when I was younger in my early 20s. But I realized that, that shifted when I found out that no, inspiration is the power. Motivation is, hey, I got this idea, this big goal I want to make. And when I get that, I'm going to be happy. But the problem is it's fleeting because you're just on to the next. But inspiration is timeless. I live in that timeless inspiration because there's no way I can lose. There's no getting there. You're just being done. You're not doing anything. You're just being done. That's a very Nowist concept. But when you learn to live that place, you can access the flow state consistently. Like when I wrote the Nowist, when the Nowist happened, there was no motivation. I didn't go to college, Richard. I don't have a degree in anything but my life's results. And I was just literally called by God I downloaded this information. I sat at my kitchen table for 9 months straight, 4.5 hours. I would just sit there and write. And I would wake up in the morning at like 4 o'clock in the morning, not even knowing what woke me up, but inspiration took me where I needed to go. There was no motivation. That's the flow state. You can activate it, but you cannot try to do things. You have to allow yourself to be done. And there's the rub, because most of us, like, we're all ambitious. We want to get stuff done. We got to compete with the Joneses, right? We're comparing ourselves to everybody. It's so fleeting. You need to flip that. Don't find motivation in anything. Find inspiration in everything.
Yeah. This is a fascinating conversation we're having with Billy Mandarino. He is the Nowist. BillyMandarino.com is the website, and we will be linked to it here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and Billy Mandarino is with us. BillyMandarino.com is the website. We hope that you'll go there. Billy, we've got plenty of time for this. I would like for you to share with us your near-death experience. Obviously, in the material world, we like to have just a few details, depending upon how much you'd like to share. But I am more interested, as I always have been for years, in what happens to a person after. I mean, I actually went through this with my sister when she passed. I'm going, I wonder what she's experiencing. What is she doing now? Where is she? Now, I will tell you, I could hear her after passing. But I'm curious. And I did go through a Life Between Lives hypnosis. We have a practitioner here in Santa Barbara. Oh my God, it was so fascinating. I actually kind of miss the life before this one. But tell us, what did you experience on the inside from the experience you had on the outside that took you there?
Wow. Okay. So I'll try and be brief because this story can take some time, but I want to be succinct, and I want to make sure that your listeners and viewers can feel where this came from. Because for me, I've been very blessed to be a healthy specimen physically. I don't get sick. Prior to getting this illness, I had not had a flu or a cold in a decade. I just lived very healthy. When you live as a Nowist, you have physical immunity, you also have spiritual immunity.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how I was living. But between you and me, this thing called COVID, I believe to be a biological man-made weapon. I don't believe it exists in nature. And so my wife turned 50 a couple of years ago, three years ago. And we were going to have her big 50th birthday party. But a few years ago, remember, we were all in lockdown. You couldn't go anywhere. There was no events. There was no parties or no restaurants. I thought, oh my gosh, it's her 50th birthday. And my wife's birthday is New Year's Eve. It's always a party. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to let her miss her 50th birthday. So Miami, Florida was not locked down. So we flew to Miami. This wonderful event was happening at the beach with, what was his name? Nelly, the singer Nelly was having this beach party. I thought she loves dance music. You're socially distanced. You're away from everybody. Everybody had to be 20 feet and there was no dance floor. I thought, perfect. We had a few friends that lived there. So I got a table. We flew to Miami. We stayed at this beautiful resort. And I thought, okay, we're on the beach. We're safe. And so we get there, and about 3 hours before the show, they set this huge grandstand up with this massive speakers. And I thought, oh, this is going to be awesome, right on the beach. They said, oh, it's too windy. We got to move it inside. Well, nobody was inside at this time because of obviously the super spreader events. They were calling them back then. There's a super spreader events. People are just around each other. Everybody's getting sick. And it's this huge ballroom, like 30,000 square foot ballroom. I thought, oh, you know what? They're moving it inside. They gave you the option to cancel or to go. I said, no, we're going to do it. We're going to go. We had this table of 6 people. We're going to stay away from everybody. We're going to wear a mask. We're not going to dance. So we had this incredible New Year's Eve birthday party. We celebrated my wife's 50th. It was awesome. We had a great time. We flew back like January 2nd or 3rd, I think it was. And a day later, she and I came down with COVID. And then we gave it to our daughter. So our whole little house here was just like COVID alley. And so they healed up in maybe a day or two. They were fine. But for me, who'd never been sick before, I was in this bed for 10 days solid with 102 fever. Ooh. This thing was just taking me out. And I thought, wow, every spiritual concept, meditation, breath work, eating all kinds of healthy vegetables and supplements and trying to shake this thing, I could not beat it. And the doctor said, hey, he's 10 days. He's got this terrible cough. If he doesn't break this fever, we're going to take him to the hospital. He's getting what's called COVID lung. started getting to my, my immune system couldn't fight it. My lungs were starting to fill up with fluid. And I said, oh, no. Because the number 3 cause of death is hospitalization. Heart disease is number 1, cancer is number 2, hospitalization is the number 3. And I knew that because when I was giving my talks out in the world, it was like, that was one of my stats that I would talk from. I said, okay, I'm not going to the hospital. And I had not told any of my family members that I was sick because my dad, God bless him, at 79, had open heart surgery. And we were all praying for him. I didn't want the prayers to be spent on me. I wanted to keep the family, 6 brothers and sisters. We have a huge family, extended family. We were all praying for my dad. But I realized, okay, I need to call in the big guns. It's 10 days. I do not want to go into the hospital. I need to get beyond myself. And that was one of the first lessons I got from this kind of paralyzing and traumatic event I was going through, that I can't do it alone. It takes a village. You've heard that many times. But when you have the collective energy of prayer, it creates miracles. So honest to God, that night, my wife called and told my family what was going on. Everybody gave me the deepest prayers they could that evening. And the next morning, I broke my fever from 102. It went down to like 99.9. Then it slowly got better. And then I healed up. I never went to the hospital. I spent about 12 days in this room quarantining for my wife and daughter who had finally kicked it. And I just stayed in here and I read and wrote and played music and wrote songs and just tried to quarantine and heal up. So when I finished this illness, I felt like I do now. And I love to golf. So I said, I'm going golfing. I went outside, which golf became this huge COVID sport because it's outside, you're socially distanced from people. So I go golfing. I carry my 25-pound back of clubs, 10 holes. I felt great. I played good. And I felt great. So I go to bed that night. The next morning I wake up and I'm numb head to foot. I can't feel my face, my hands, my feet. 2 days after that, I lost the ability to walk. My wife and daughter had to carry me down the stairs, put me in a car, and take me to the cottage hospital. They wheeled me in with a wheelchair, and it was the hardest goodbye I'd ever had in my life. Because if you remember back then, you couldn't have visitors. And I am paralyzed. The doctors don't know what's wrong with me. And my wife and daughter, I have to say goodbye to them. I thought, oh my God, I don't know when I'm coming back out or if I'm coming back out. And it was this really tearful, emotional scene. Never forget it. It hits me right now. I've been thinking about it. But as they wheel me in, the doctor says, okay, we do not have a clue what's wrong with you. I have no medical history of anything. My chart is clear. I'm 52, 53 at the time. And I'm a little claustrophobic. I've always been a little claustrophobic. And you spoke earlier about your past lives. I think in my past life, I had some traumatic, I don't know if I died in a cave or something or suffocation, but I've always had this weird fear over claustrophobia. And I've done a lot of work on it. It's not as bad as it used to be, but they put me in an MRI tube, Richard, for 4.5 hours. They couldn't knock me out. They couldn't do anything. I said, you got to knock me out. I can't do it. Even though I couldn't move, I said, I'm still conscious. And this might be too much for me. 4.5 hours in an MRI tube. I called it my COVID cocoon. I literally was in this tube. I chanted, sang, prayed. I did the Now-ist meditation like I was just some psycho. I allowed myself to go quantum. Remember when I said, trust your gut, get up there, GUT? I was living in that quantum realm. I was 3 miles above the earth. I never allowed my physical body to experience what it felt like to be in that. I never opened my eyes for 4.5 hours. I just imagined myself, if I lived in this quantum realm, that earth or that blue line I was seeing, I was singing and chanting and experiencing. My imagination was the greatest gift because that's the only thing that saved my experience that day. I didn't want to push that red button because also I didn't know what was wrong with me. And it takes 4.5 hours, if anybody ever wants to know, to get every image of the physical body. 4.5 hours, and they couldn't stop. So I get pulled out, and the guy says, well, everything looks normal. You just have a little arthritis in your lower back, probably from golfing so much and carrying my 25-pound clubs. So then they spinal tap me, and they find out that I have this incredibly rare syndrome that no one in Santa Barbara County had contracted from COVID. I got Guillain-Barré syndrome from COVID. And if you don't know what Guillain-Barré syndrome is, it's when you have like the insulation around your nerve. So imagine an extension cord and you got that insulation so electricity doesn't shock you every time you grab it. But imagine if piranhas ate little holes out of that cord. All the electricity would be going out the holes. And that's what happened. My immune system, after healing COVID, had this weird anomaly. They can't figure out what caused it. but it attacked my nerve endings and it paralyzed me. And so I had to be in this hospital bed. They finally said, okay, on the second day, they figured out they had this immunoglobulin A treatment they're going to give me. Immuno A or G, I forget. It's basically, it takes 1,000 blood donors to spin out one vial of this stuff. It's $5,000 a vial. I had 8 vials over 2 days. And they said, this should interrupt your immune system from eating itself. And then your myelin, which is like your fingernails, has to repair so you can get your energy and you get your walking and your ability to move your motor skills again. So I laid in that bed, and the first day I was scared shitless. I'll tell you, I was totally, I mean, I've been studying and practicing, but I didn't know if I was going to walk out of there again, see my wife, my daughter again. 3 months later, I've been planning my first Nowist experience live event. Took me a whole year to plan it. My bandmate and I, Kirsten, had written an entire record around this. This was like the biggest thing of my life at the time. And I'm in a hospital bed, paralyzed. So the second day, that morning, I woke up and I realized, okay, I'm not the victim here. I'm going to make this my spiritual practice. Even though I couldn't move, I'm laying in a bed in the Ridley Tree ward of the Cottage Hospital with 90 other COVID patients in there. And I just said, I'm going to make this my spiritual practice. And I am going to use my energy that I have, my inspiration that I have, even though I want to heal myself, I'm going to help other people from this paralyzed state. So every nurse that came in, doctor, speech therapist, because I was losing the ability to swallow, because Guillain-Barré patients sometimes die from suffocation because you have no diaphragmatic muscles to breathe with, and you suffocate. And I could feel that it was starting to happen to me. Even though I was totally terrified, I realized, no, this is a counterintuitive experience. I'm going to use my energy and my heart and my compassion and the gifts that I've been given of my teaching of how to get out of stress and overwhelm. I'm going to use it on other people, and I'm going to get better. I'm going to ask everybody how I can serve them while they're serving me. And so that was my mission. So I spent 21 nights in the hospital, never saw my wife and daughter once. And I just used all my energy to get better, but it's counterintuitive. I got better because I was serving other people. I'd ask them about their relationship problems, their financial problems, their health problems, everything was going on in their life. How can I serve you? Not what's in it for me. And I got better. And 21 days later, I walked out of there with a cane. 2 weeks after that, I was golfing again. And the doctors say it was a miracle. They said in about a year, you should get back to your normal life. You're still going to have numbness. You're still going to have weakness. I had what's called long hauler syndrome. The worst thing you can get in long haulers is this or death. I mean, it's right on the edge. And I just had this experience. And what took me out of the stress, the worry, the fear, I never allowed my imagination to focus on what I did not want. I kept seeing myself with my wonderful human imagination connected with all 5 of my senses on that stage, performing those songs, teaching for 2 days, this first Nowist live that I was having. I saw myself there. I tasted the water. I felt the hot lights. I felt the hugs I was giving people. I imagined myself on Pebble Beach playing golf, looking at the grass, looking at the beautiful bay, feeling what it felt like to hit the shots. I never allowed myself to not live in that end. I focused on the end, not about the end. I was living from the end, because in that paralyzed moment, I just allowed myself to experience everything that I really wanted to manifest in my life. And I contemplated myself constantly surrounded by the conditions I wanted to manifest. I never slipped in 21 days. And I had this miraculous recovery, thanks to the incredible doctors and nurses, the physical therapists, the neurologists, the internal medicine doctors at Cottage Hospital. 50% was them, but the other 50% was this subjective spiritual attention that I allowed myself to live in. And then I had this miraculous recovery. And what's happening for me is, I call it my COVID cocoon, because I was living in this rigor mortis state. But then this, the monarch butterfly, right, emerges from this cocoon after it's looked like it's dead, but it becomes this version of its highest self. And I believe I call this my COVID cocoon because that's what it became for me. One of my greatest spiritual experiences ever. But it was a spiritual practice that taught me how to be of service to others and not focus on me as the victim. And then I got better.
Well, I can tell you that when we take the focus off of self, and this is not to the exclusion of self, one of the universal laws that I have discovered is that there is always an exchange. You cannot fight it. There has to be a giver and a receiver. But as you have explained it, you were giving. You were giving, not necessarily with the expectation of receiving, but just you were just giving. And the universe gave back. You were able to receive. And
Amen.
to me, that's one of those things that it's like with my philosophy in this work that I do. If I were doing a project with you, uh, I'm not doing it for me to be successful. I want you to be successful. And in turn, that will make me successful. But not until I help you to do that. And that's been my philosophy. And I've even taken on projects that someone would say, "Oh, Richard, you're undercharging yourself." Well, I would rather do the project for the smaller or the lesser amount than not do the project at all because they can't afford my rate.
It's a technology, and Jesus taught us exactly this technology of
Yeah.
abundance. He says, "Give, and it will be given you. Good measure, shaken together, pressed down, will be returned to your lap. For the measure that you give, it will be measured back to you." So
Yeah.
Jesus teaches that, and that's a technology for abundance, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
if you're ever lacking in your life, follow that. Go, and I forget which passage is Luke or Matthew, but find that scripture, read that scripture, prepare it for memory,
Mhm.
get it into your cells, and live that way. You'll never be scarce in your life again. You'll only be abundance, because that's when you come from that place, the law of attraction activates. And that's why Jesus knows. And he says, this
Yeah.
is how you should live. Always
Yeah.
give, just give.
Also, the passage in the Gospels talking where Jesus is trying to calm the fears of his disciples over what they're going to eat and where they're going to sleep, what they're going to wear, and so forth. It's just, look up there, look up in the trees. See the bird up there? That bird does not work. That bird is not a part of the human economic system. Okay, and yet look, there it is. It's caring for the bird is caring for its young, is flying around, singing, having a grand time. And yet, guess what? It's taken care of. How much more will the universe care for you?
Oh my God, Richard. And the one that I love, I think, is in Luke. It says, "No man setting his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom of heaven." Now, what does that have to do with the now? Jesus obviously was the first Nowist probably ever, right?
Yeah.
He don't look, and take no thought for the morrow, for the morrow will take care of itself. I mean, he's constantly telling you, be in the present moment. I am in the present moment. God is in the present moment, and you are part of God. You have that spark of God in you.
Yeah.
So take that spark and ignite it and be the light of the world as I am the light of the world. Because he says also, I am the light of the world. Jesus in another passage says, you are the light of the world. It's a clue. It's
Yeah.
a clever clue. So pay attention.
Exactly. Exactly. I would have to say that in many of the ancient wisdom teachings, but as we've been alluding to, the Bible in particular, there are a lot of, and I'm using a modern terminology here, there are a lot of Easter eggs in there, but you gotta look for them. You've got to be open to them, or you'll miss them. Because that was one you mentioned earlier about the I am. I
Yes.
am the way, the truth, and the life. I am. And I was like, oh, that makes even more sense now than ever
That's it.
before. And then, of course, there's the other element. I'm not following a personality. I'm following the I am. The I am that's mentioned in the Old Testament. You know, it's extraordinary. We are talking with Billy Mandarino. BillyMandarino.com is the website, and the Now-ist. I have my copy. Do you have yours? I'm sure you can get it through his website or at Amazon or any other location, or as he has already mentioned, the Audible version. How exciting would that be for him to read that to you? Maybe at bedtime, read a chapter, what have you. Stay
Well,
tuned.
Richard,
Tell me your story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. And Billy, one final question I want to ask you. You are in your 50s, right?
55 in May. Yes.
And yet you still hold to Billy as opposed to William or Bill. Uh, any particular reason?
I'm glad you asked that question because, my father, my pa, I was named after, I'm his first boy. My brother Gib is a year and a half younger than I am, but I was his first boy he named after himself. And I'm William Mandarino. My father is William Mandarino. I'm not a second. I wish I had the same name as my dad. His middle name is Lath. Is that a cool name? My middle name is
Yeah.
Anthony. So, but I'm not a junior, but I consider myself a junior because my father is the rock. He's the pa. He's the cowboy. He lives up in Hay, Washington, on this ranch with
Oh,
this beautiful lady. We call her Bonus Mom, and it's just this incredible experience. But when I was in high school, I went by Bill. My dad goes by Will, and I went by Bill. But when I graduated from high school, I changed my name to Billy, because as Rumi says, sell your cleverness, and purchase bewilderment. I live in childlike bewilderment. I've done this my whole life. One of my best friends in the world, he and I created this thing called cereal parties. We were in high school. So everybody else was getting drunk and going to these red cup parties. And we said, you know what? Let's have a cereal party. We called it a CP. We had a sign for it, CP. And we just lived, and we had these people come over, all these athletes, all these just jocks and nerds and geeks. So everybody hung out at his mom's house, and we'd crank up the music and get a sugar high. We were just, instead of getting buzzed on Coke or pot or whatever, drinking, we were just on Lucky Charms and, Fruit Loops and Cocoa Puffs. And we just had this little thing happen in our school where it became this underground cereal party thing. And to this day, my wife is a high school teacher. It lives on. We do CPs all the time.
oh,
So living as Billy felt more natural to me, because even then in high school, when I didn't even know the things that I've studied and practiced and live now,
mhm.
intuitively I was trusting there's something, this higher self, right? This I am presence in me was hearkening, was trying to get my attention. Don't live in this physical world and be so serious. You're not a Bill, you're a Billy, you're a kid. Never grow up. That's the key. Never grow up. Live in that childlike bewilderment always, and find ways to do that.
It's interesting because my father, probably both my mother and father, named me. And my father's name is Leslie Richard. My name is Richard Less. I always love to joke with people, say, yeah, it's a math equation. Richard Less Dugan is just Richard.
It's
Uh,
quantum.
yeah, it's very interesting how a matter of fact, there was a period of time with my second wife that I'm still with and hope to be with until I depart. Um, I took on, because my metaphysical primer is Autobiography of a Yogi. And in it, there's a story, the story of the Tiger Swami. And the Tiger Swami took on a challenge to go up against a Bengal tiger by the name of Raja Begum. And translated, that is Prince, Princess.
Hmm.
And it just rang to me. So I started to refer to myself as Raja. And it dropped off a few years later, but that's something that I still remember. And I'm thinking, boy, that would be interesting to go back to that, Reverend Dr. Raja.
I love that book. I've read it many times. If you haven't read Autobiography of Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, oh my gosh, read
Oh,
that one. That
if
book
you
is incredible.
get it on Audible, whether Ben Kingsley reads it, I read it back when I was 17, but
I
back
love it.
then I was listening to talking books and recordings for the blind long before Audible was Audible. And the author who read it, it was actually recorded in the studios of the Recording House for the Blind in New York in 1972.
Really?
I have that recording on my phone from the
Oh my
cassettes
gosh.
that I used to listen to. But when I first listened to it, it was on vinyl, and the vinyl was 90 minutes long, 45 minutes aside. This turntable spun at 1 7/8 revolutions, okay, per minute. So it was slow, but that's how I first listened to this book and I've listened to it over and over again. I put my earbuds in.
Oh, me
I
too.
actually only go with one earbud. I always keep this ear open because I need to be aware of what's going on around me.
Smart.
And I will listen to that. And I remember the stories. I still remember numerous different tales of the challenge that his brother put to him about whether or not he really trusted God. And he said, and if you can come back from Brindahar, Brindaban, without any money or what have you, and you're doing well and everything, I will become a devotee. And of course he did, because Paramahansa and his friend Jitindra, who was the doubting Thomas of the duo. I thought it was so funny too, because as soon as they were fed and they walked out onto the street to continue their journey, he became worried once again about where their next meal was coming from. And it's like, are you kidding? Are you not seeing what is happening? You know.
What about Sri Yukteswar? Remember his teacher, Sri Yukteswar, and
yes.
Lahiri Mahasha, and those credible stories of those masters, and how they materialize and dematerialize and bilocate, and
yes,
crazy paranormal things that people don't think are true, but they actually happened.
Yeah. I love the story, the story of the kite story, where his sister comes up on the balcony and everything, and the kite gets cut because they put glass on the string, and it's a competition. And if you cut your competitor's string with the glass on your kite, then you win. And of course, the kite gets away because the string gets cut, and it's gone. Oh, ye of little faith. And the next thing you know, the kite gets stuck in a tree. The string gets caught in a tree, and he's able to retrieve the kite. Just extraordinary things. He did have one situation with his sister where he said that she would have this boil, and it did manifest. And he was then, I think it was by his mother, he was I don't know if you want to say chastised per se, but it was like he was warned to use your, so to speak, your powers for good, kind of thing. And that to me is very important. Before we wrap things up, I want to ask you about that concept in this phrase: words have power.
Well, you said it earlier, and I love it. It's in my book as well. Feeling good and feeling God are the same thing. Feeling good and feeling God are the same. So if you're feeling good, you're in the energy of God. And when you realize that you are the I am that I am, you are the I am presence, and it never leaves you, you leave it. I mean, the problem is that we get our focus on this, once again, the past, future. We think about our childhood, our traumatic events that are still showing up in this current time that we live in. And you're worrying about the future, and the future becomes your past because you spend your energy on it. I mean, feeling good and feeling God. How often do you find yourself in gratitude, deep gratitude, for the fact that we live in this, we have these first world problems, right? We have so much abundance in our life. We have someone that spends $200 million to entertain us on a movie that we could just spend $15 to watch. And we have enough food to eat, enough, water, thank God. We have so much to be grateful. And they say that gratitude is the best multiplier. So when you realize that you have the I am presence in you, and you can find the gratitude in the smallest things, and then when you feel grateful, you just learn to pay it forward. It's a technology. You just learn that words have power, but make sure you tell yourself the words that support you, and know that it all starts with the I am. Be really careful how you use your I ams. Like Dr. Emoto taught us, like the words have an actual frequency and energy. So feeling good and feeling God. I mean, funny things like this, like what is dog spelled backwards? God, right? I mean, the unconditional love that the pets show us, the dog specifically shows us. I believe there's a clue there. There's like, no, there's this unconditional love. Be like that for other people. Be like that for your family members. Instead of being, quick tempered or taking this emotional response to somebody, find out how to be compassionate, give them the benefit of the doubt, live this way as a way of life. And that's ultimately what a Nowist is anyway, Richard. It's just living in service, living in present moment awareness, and finding how can I be a better version of myself in that I am presence in this moment, not in your past and future conditioning, but in this now moment. That's where your power resides. Find the joy in that.
The Nowist, BillyMandarino.com, the website, BillyMandarino.com will be linked to that website so that you can find out more about the Nowist right now. Go there, please pick up a copy of the book, The Nowist. And we certainly hope that you will start living in this very moment that we are in right now. It's going to be an exciting journey as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host here on Tell Me Your Story, and Billy Mandarino. It's been a great pleasure to have this conversation with you, and I hope that we can do this again because it needs to be shared over and over again, kind of like Groundhog Day. As we are conversing, it just happens to be Groundhog Day, but it also happens to be my wife's birthday. So happy birthday, Amrita. It's going to be a great day. I don't know whether Agua Fria Freddy, that is Arizona's version of Punxsutawney Phil, or Punxsutawney Phil did or didn't see his shadow. And you know what? Don't care. The weather is going to be what the weather's going to be, whether Punxsutawney tells us what it's going to be or not. And I consider weather to be more of an art than a science, and that's just fine. But Billy, I thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Richard. What an honor, brother, to share this time, this illusion of time with you, this moment with you, this current moment. I pray that your listeners and viewers take on the concept of the Groundhog's Day and let every day be this moment. Let every day be this now moment, because you keep coming back to it. It's this illusion of time. Don't live in it. Find this present moment and let it be your new way of living. And then just find that energy and pay it forward to somebody. I just thank you so much for your wonderful show. I love it. I love your heart. I love what you're about. And I'm just blessed and feel very grateful, man.
Well, I have three final questions that I ask all of my guests that we have been doing for the last 15 years. And it's real exciting to bring those questions forward. However, I'm going to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story before I ask those of Billy. Thank you for watching and listening to New Paradigms for a New World. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We're here Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., 9 a.m. on Wednesdays for a special edition of Tell Me Your Story. We stream live at those times at richarddugan.com. We also podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations across the width and breadth of the internet. I don't know where it begins or ends. And once again, I don't care. Also, we're on YouTube, where you can watch these interviews. We hope you'll subscribe and get notified when a new interview is posted, and share it. I just crossed over the century mark with 101 subscribers on YouTube and 92,500 plus listens since 2018, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know honestly what those numbers really mean, other than to me, it means people are listening and watching, and I'm grateful for that. Very grateful. I also ask that you participate in the Decade of Perfect Vision, the 2020s, and go within, listen to that still small voice. And if you're going to listen, please follow the promptings. I guarantee you, the still small voice will never put you in harm's way, but it will challenge you from time to time, because it has challenged me, and I'm grateful for that challenge. And we also ask that if you are able to take on another challenge of supporting this program financially, we would greatly appreciate that. We have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. There is a link on the homepage at richarddugan.com to our PayPal account as well. With all of that being said, I want to ask the three final questions of our guest, the Nowist. Number one, who is Billy Mandarino?
Well, I read a wonderful book called A Course in Miracles, and in it, they have this very profound sentence, and it says, I just want to learn to think like God thinks. So I am a being in this meat suit, in this physical moment right now, wanting to learn to think like God thinks. So I am the mind and the feelings and the thoughts of God.
What is your life's purpose?
To be a Nowist, to serve people with present moment awareness, and to do my part in this parentheses and eternity, as it's been said.
I hope you get the movie reference to this third and final question. What was your best day?
Ooh. The day my daughter was born.
Well, Billy, thank you again for joining us here on the program, and we will continue to be in the now moment, or from my reference point on the recording line, the center line, and just live in that position, just kind of gazing over the past, gazing over what the future might hold, and maintaining that optimism that I know that we both share.
Richard, you're a light brother. I'm so grateful, and I send nothing but love and gratitude to you today.
Thank you very much. And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to lol. And Jeanette, I am still listening.